But buyers, they don't want to talk to sales anymore. They want to get through their whole journey on their own. They want to do all their own research, and then they don't want to fill out a form. They don't want to know who they are. They want to do it anonymously and on their own.
I'm super excited because David is such like a great human being, and I know we got connected through him. And so I was curious, how did you meet David?
Yeah, so I took private equity money in March, a very important moment in our history. It was a milestone to move from being founder and sort of self-funded with our initial team of founders onto jet fuel. And we took a partnership with Recognize, particularly Mike Grady at Recognize, and Mike was on the board at 3Pillar and introduced me to David. And as we were thinking about how to build a diverse board of, not just financial professionals and category experts, but just successful CEOs that had done it, I get introduced to him as part of that, and I totally agree. Fell in love with his, philosophy on how to CEO, and I said I want to learn how to be a better CEO from that person and how to lead a better team and achieve better things in my company. And he felt the same way. So it was great. It was a match, and he's been really, really great resource to have. And I'm privileged he wanted to work with us. And he loves our story. He thinks our business model is transformational and in some similar ways what he was doing, kind of category creation. But it was such an awesome connection to make.
And so what category did you create?
Marketing as a service. It's sort of a new way to think of how to run the marketing department with third-party services, and sort of not agency related necessarily, but real dedicated, intentional, managed services on running the day-to-day work inside of marketing. And so a lot of agencies might come in and do a project at a point in time, like a new website or a new brand or a new, launch of something. But then the marketing team does all the day-to-day work. And I think our category is more about how do we bring in third-party expertise and run work to make that day-to-day work even more effective, so that the internal team can do the things that only they can do, like product, like strategy, like brand messaging, alignment with customer, priorities and sales priorities. And then when it comes to all the blocking and tackling and day-to-day work, bring in an expert third party to do that. And so that kind of shift, which has occurred in most functions of business, not in B2B marketing yet. So a lot of those areas, I think really, and as you guys are doing on the podcast space, like bringing experts in to handle pieces, I think is a newer concept for marketing when it comes to run work. Like marketers are really good at outsourcing projects, but they're not so good at like bringing in partners to help run big chunks of the organization.
Yeah, I see it. My background was software engineering, and I saw it happening there in different words with how frameworks emerged and people stopped rewriting stuff and just started using the common, pre-built things. And I watched the emergence of that. And now I'm, owning my business. We're, much smaller than you. We're about 20 people, but it's really clear that you need the person that owns it and the person that deeply, deeply understands it. And then a bunch of work will emerge around that individual. And then it becomes the question of, to support the work that needs to be done around that. I call them magic people, but around the magic person, do you hire that infrastructure, or do you leverage a partner to help with that? And that's always the big question. So that's what you guys are for marketing then.
That's right. Yeah. Providing the arms, legs, brains to execute and do work all day. And that's it's a thing that the world needs right now. I think a lot of marketing departments are under difficult times as marketing budgets can become, the smallest they've been in recent memory, and a lot of austerity around attention on cost and those kind of things. But now's the time you need more revenue, and now's the time you need more marketing. And so being able to provide a model that can bring that and also bring it with offshore economics so it actually can cost less to get more is really the problem every CMO is facing. That's sort of the lane that we're in.
How did you develop those relationships across countries and continents?
I was a CMO who had this problem, and I went on a journey to find a solution to it and was introduced to someone in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia through a friend of a friend of a friend, and was really just blown away by the just quality and caliber of talent that is in other places. I mean, we just think as marketers, and it's wrong, but we think that, we're the best people in the world to do this because we're US based in headquarters, close to the business. And when it comes to the thing of my first experience with someone in Kuala Lumpur was we're talking about testing and optimization and how to deliver a dynamic web experience. And I was like, every marketer I know is talking about this. Like, you guys are doing it. Like, you're actually building these scenarios and tests and real time serving dynamic content and seeing what works better and looking at that and then driving that into, if that's a great web experience, that would be a great social media, that would be great advertising, that would be great email, like unifying that. Like, this is really cool stuff. And I just found, that there were amazingly talented people in those markets that were like, had IP and had capability that we didn't have, and decided to build a whole business around that. And really of the first 10 employees we hired back in 2017, I think 8 or 9 of them are still here. And so we've been able to really build a special thing where it's not just an offshore team, it's some of the best marketers in the world, coming in to help large companies, small companies, private equity funded companies, tech companies, all companies in B2B in my space, but at least lots of different kinds of companies really achieve different levels of marketing results and break through to that next level of impact and performance.
And you're at several hundred people now, correct?
600. Yeah.
Wow.
Over 5 years. It's been a big journey.
And you just took your first round of funding recently, or did you have other smaller ones?
No, we self-funded it out of the gate. And then, so we made it this far on our own, and we frankly didn't need funding. The business has been doing really well, but I really felt that as we go off and we tapped into something that the world needs, and we wanted to build, a more enterprise grade offering. Yeah. The world told us.
Look how fast you grew. That is not normal. That's not a normal growth rate. Yeah.
And we didn't do any of the marketing for ourselves. It was a lot of like inbound customer referrals, CMOs telling other CMOs, private equity firms bringing us in and taking us across the portfolio. And so the market kind of just responded and said yes. And so we were like, great. And how do we lean into this? Like, how do we build even more capabilities in the service? How do we eliminate the friction? How do we bring in some really high powered talent? And how do we manage, a service firm that's growing at 100% per year for 5 years? There's some best practices, and thankfully we recognize and their network of Frank in particular, having built, Cognizant and some of the biggest service firms in the world. That kind of playbook I thought would be really useful to us and would help us not like innovate on things that have already been done. Like, let's take the best practices for doing this and deploy it in our world and then go faster.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm 35 currently, but it's over the past 15 years I've noticed that I went from wanting to do everything uniquely with my own spin on it to just take the thing that we know works and just focus on that 20% that makes the difference.
Yeah, it's tough because like people that are really successful entrepreneurial like to innovate on everything. It's part of that's our skill that makes us really good. And as you reach a point of scale, you've got to find out the balance of what are the things that must be innovated upon because we have to be unique and different, or where is the innovation really applying, knowing which of the standardized processes to bring in and where to innovate. And so really thinking about, where does it make sense to just adopt what works? That is in and of itself, I think, a form of innovation. And
then do you guys have a podcast?
We do not. No, we do not yet. It's on the list of to-dos. I enjoy talking to folks in the market. There's some people I really respect who are doing it already. We do not have our own. No.
What's your favorite marketing podcast?
I like Matt Hines, Sales Pipeline Radio. He's my go-to. He's speaks our language and definitely understands the ABM driven B2B marketing transformation opportunity in front of everyone.
Did he come? Oh my goodness. This is crazy. I did some work with him like 15 years ago in real estate. I was like, I Googled him real quick. I was like, is that the same Matt Hines? Wow. He was in real estate like I don't know if he's still in real estate, but he was doing some real estate marketing.
I don't think it's the one that Josh has up. Hines, H-E-I-N-Z.
No, I don't. None. Oh, H-E-I-N-Z?
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt Hines, H-E-I-N-Z. I'm sorry. I'm not seeing what Josh has on the screen right now. I'm looking at my screen. Yeah. When I saw his face, I was like, I know that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is small. He's doing a podcast now? Come on. That's great.
You got to reconnect. You got to send him a note to reconnect with him.
I do.
He's
got a distinct look.
Well. He does.
He also has had the same headshot for like 15 years. Or at least 10.
He still looks like that. He's allowed.
Does he?
Some people have changed he's still the same, physical appearance. And a lot taller in person, I'd say, as well.
Oh, that's so great. Small world. Josh, can you make a note of that? Because, I didn't, he has a memorable last name because the first time I ever met him, I was like, oh, the ketchup company or something? Like,
Sure. I just said to you, he wrote this blog about all the funny experiences with his life about getting like complaints from people who had problems with ketchup, and some school teacher who wanted the Heinz ketchup costume for her school by classroom. And you've got to find it. He's got this whole article about all the Heinz, things in his life, which is really funny.
Yeah, that is. I just pulled up his LinkedIn. Yeah, that's funny because his says Heinz Marketing 14 years, 9 months ago. And when I connected him back in my life, I was like, oh yeah, I ran into him. Oh, yep. Look, he used to be at House Values, Senior Director of Marketing at House Values. Yeah, there you go. Man, that's a small world. We know how many other people do we know?
I don't know. Yeah, that's my go-to. And he's sort of become like, if you're like a B2B CMO, like he's the guy you listen to. I think he's really got
Are you serious?
Attention,
that is so great.
Yeah.
I got to say, hey, we got to get on there and help cross promote our podcast production services. Yeah. That's what we got to do.
Well, yeah. A lot of people want to build one. And that's part of like, I've like friends that have them. So like, I'll just join yours versus build your own is a lot of, a lot of work, but important work.
Yeah. And I'm actually curious to have we'll edit around this, but I'm curious to have conversations with you about how you do your relationships with other countries in a way that it's a high quality situation and not a low quality situation. And if there might be some opportunity there, but back to you in your company. So help me understand this. This is something that's not entirely clear for me right now. I understand that you do the work and you help like the key people, you can pair into their teams and help them do this, be the arms and legs and whatnot. But do you also have the magic people at your company? If we don't have them, can we come to you and say like, hey, we need strategy. We have a really great widget maker. We really know the widget and the problems that it solves. And we don't really know a whole lot about marketing at all. Can you just plug an entire team in with all the areas of expertise?
We can. And that's part of what we built. The first thing I built after we took private equity investment was a strategy practice, a consulting practice. Hired some amazing people in that who have been B2B marketing strategists their whole career, who really understand how to solve sticky problems, and whether it's an assessment, a diagnostic, a strategy, a plan, a provocative set of recommendations to move you to a different state, or an interim assignment. We do now have a practice as of this year to be able to do that work. And it's so important because sometimes it's two different problems. Either I don't know what to do, or I know what to do and don't have anyone to do it. We can solve either of those. And I think in the world of every marketer's in some form of transformation right now, you need to be able to do both.
And so you do these two things really, really well, and you just do that over and over and over and make the experience better and better and better. And that's how you went, to 500, 600, 700 employees in the past couple of years.
Yeah. I think it's solving a real need. I think there's a lot of things that we're seeing that tie in, I think, exactly to, your community. Like there's marketers have spent so much money on technology and very few are fully utilizing it. Lots of reports coming out on that. Gartner, I think recently, was 42% of the MarTech that marketers have invested in, the functionality is being used. 42% of it's being used, which is interesting. It's actually, frankly, higher than I would have thought. But it was 58% like 2 years ago. And so there's this huge void of marketing tech skills and capabilities that I think is a problem getting worse on its own as marketers are running around, with these big appetite, objective, like priorities around how do I bring in all these new data tools and intent tools and account-based marketing and automation and AI and. And so the almost like the market conditions that need what we do are naturally just growing and growing and growing. And I think we've really built a solve on that and really have built a model where we want customers to be really successful and so successful they keep us forever. They tell other friends about us. As CMOs move on, which tends to happen more than most positions, they bring us to the next company. We stay where we were, and then they go to the next company with them. And then that kind of model has been really, we built the business around, let's do great work. Let's worry about that. Let's not worry about, putting our brand everywhere in the world and, building this hype around, us. Let's make it about making the customer successful, the CMO successful, the marketer successful, and helping them really deliver things that they know they want to do, but they just don't have the people to do it.
Yeah, that's something we found out early on, is to look at the key contact, the individual that's the stakeholder, as the customer, and how do we make them look good? And, even to our point of our onboarding process, understanding what they get judged on and what they have reporting on, so that we can be even thinking about it, because we want to make them look good, right? And then when they go to other companies, they don't even have a question. Those are my favorite deals, is when we get someone that comes from another company, they're just like, hey, we need a show. And I'm like, all right, because they know we can deliver, and it's the beauty of the relationships. So, yeah. Hey, I had a couple other questions for you about those numbers that you just mentioned. Like, why did it change? Did they start building more features, or is it like, how did that number go in the opposite direction?
Well, I think it's one, marketers are buying more tech. And so the more tech they buy, the less percentage of tech they're able to manage, which is an interesting reality. Secondly, I think when tech strategy is built and tech decisions are made in marketing, the marketer is a technology leader who does not have a technology background. And so a lot of times, I think marketers are doing exactly the right thing. They're understanding the power of a new platform. They're deciding that can bring huge value to their organization. They buy the platforms. They want to bring it into their environment. But they missed a part of, well, how are we going to do it, the human side around it? Who's going to use it? How are we going to train people? How are we going to certify people? How are we going to bring it into the DNA of our organization? They don't always have that as part of the plan. And I think a lot of tech vendors have amazing platforms, but also don't always, share that what they're selling is transformation, and the technology is an enabler of that. But in order to get the transformation, in order to get some better marketing engine that's more automated, that's finding people before they even know they want to be found, and in order to do that, you need a lot of tech, you need a lot of people, you need process, right? The standard things that a technologist knows. And so I think there's a bit of that going on. And then I also think there's issues where the tech adoption is going so fast, and there's no one really creating talent to manage the tech. We did some work with 6 Sense in particular. One of the marketing tech solutions I think is most exciting in the space. We did some research with them. We looked at people that have a certification for that platform. How many of them are there on LinkedIn? Easy way to get a real-time view of supply. And then how many job descriptions are posted that want that technology skill? And what you find is these huge imbalances. Old stuff like email, trade shows, content, SEO, SEM, websites, tons of supply, 10 to 1 in how many people have the capability versus how many jobs are posted. New things, you get like twice as many job postings as there are people in the market, who, by the way, are all already employed, who have jobs. And so I think there's just everyone's fighting over these, 500,000 people that are certified, whether it's 6 Sense, whether it's Marketo, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's HubSpot, whether it's Drift, whether it's these other platforms. There's not enough certified talent in the market. And so as employers, marketing leaders are trying to find that talent. They're fighting over a very small group, and very few companies are working on, well, how do we build that talent? You don't learn it in school. You're not coming out with that. It's one of these things where sometimes you need experience to get experience. So there's sort of this scarcity of talent in that space that someone's got to solve. And I think, service providers are perfect at solving that, but there aren't a lot of managed service marketing tech service providers out there that are working on B2B specifically. And so it almost just creates this like perfect storm of a shortage, which I think is driving in the end lower outcomes from technology. And I think it's like totally solvable. It's like you either have to decide, I'm going to create these people, or I'm going to find a vendor that's going to bring these people in. But I'm going to require that if I just spend a whole bunch of money on this new technology platform and this new vision, I want to have people that really know how to use it. And if I don't have that, they're not going to buy the tech, or I'm going to, change my roadmap, or I'm going to commit to have the sort of human component with the tech component working together.
And so do you work with 6 Sense? So if a customer of theirs needs extra manpower around their technology, that they refer you?
We do. And vice versa. Okay. The customer of ours that has a lot of great ideas and wants to achieve the next level of marketing impact, we refer them. And it's a very symbiotic relationship. And so having those sort of tech partnerships has been a really cool part. And we're not resellers to the extent that we're pushing it. It's more of a, we're servicing the best stuff in the market because we think marketers should use it. And there's an opportunity to get so much more value out of what you've already bought usually. And that's how you do more with less. Like you already have this beautiful tech stack. You've already built this amazing thing that marketers stand on stage with their marketectures, and you win awards for the
marketectures.
Absolutely, yeah. And they win awards for like buying the right solutions and, integrating them together. But how do we make sure we get 100% of the functionality out of them, not 42%?
That is so cool. And so what are you talking about as far like with your colleagues? Like what are the big things happening right now in marketing that you guys see as like the next big thing?
There's a real shift in the buyer journey that I think it was going this way anyway. It was accelerated by digital work, but buyers, they don't want to talk to sales anymore. They want to get through their whole journey on their own. They want to do all their own research. They want to understand all their own, alternatives and what could be better for them independently. And then they don't want to fill out a form. They don't want to know who they are. They want to do it anonymously and on their own. And that problem has created this massive amount of buyers that are in market, but are totally unknown to most vendors. In the past, you would register for a webinar or a white paper. You would reach out to a salesperson for a demo, kind of in the beginning of your evaluation cycle. Now those things happen at the very end after someone's already made up their mind. And so how do you identify who's going through that dark funnel, that who's really on a quest to solve a problem? And how do you make sure that somewhere in that journey, they find you and tripping your door? A lot of tech is out there to help provide visibility to that. And so with, looking at search trends and behavior and intent data and buyer activity, you can start to see, particularly at a company level, what companies are looking for, what products. And then you can start to market to them. We all see this in our personal life where you get, those ads on social media that just happen to be exactly the right time. Well, applying that to B2B into our professional lives, I think that's the real shift. And when that happens also, it totally changes the relationship between sales and marketing. And so it's not necessarily marketing's job to go get a lead and hand it to sales. It's marketing's job to activate that buyer and get them engaged with your brand and to bring them in some level of conversation that then brings a salesperson in. And so that shift in the balance of the sales funnel, where it used to be like half marketing, half sales, and now it's like 80% marketing, like 20% sales, I think has changed a lot of what marketing has to do. And I think it's also changed a lot of priorities around, what marketing does and how marketing reports impact and where marketing spends attention, how marketing and sales really work together on the revenue problem. That's the big conversation. A lot of AI plays into that, a lot of technology plays into that. There's a lot of workflow in that. But that's really the change that most marketing organizations in B2B at least are going through right now.
I can say I fully agree. We had a sales call this morning. The guy showed up with like a 7-page brief document of exactly what they wanted. And he just said, I'm just shopping. Like I heard that, through a friend of a friend that you guys were a great production company and here's what I want. He knew every question. I looked at him, I was like, this is basically our kickoff call after you become a customer. And this is what we, figure out. And then he's like, yeah, I just want pricing. I was like, all right, cool. So I just jumped right to pricing because I hate when people don't give me pricing when I want it. And I jumped directly to pricing, showed it to him, and he's like, great, awesome. He's like, we're doing a Q4, send me over the proposal. And I said, awesome, great. And you're exactly right. We've been working the past 2 weeks on a new iteration of our website. So us selling podcasts is fairly new. For the first 2 years, I did the show as a hobby. Then I started doing advertising, and that's one of the ways I met 3Pillar and all of them. And then we did advertising for 3 years. And then some of our sponsors started asking us like, hey, we really enjoy sponsoring your show and coming on your show. Can you make us a show? And at the time we had done north of 500 episodes. And we're like, well, we know how to hire all these positions. We know how to, I'm a software engineer by trade. So we have everything really well organized. Like if we just follow all these processes, sure. So that was about a year and a half ago or so. We've picked up about 20 shows. But yeah, we've learned so much about how the buying process happens and how people want to receive, information. And rather than looking at what competitors do and what their websites are, we look at what our clients need from us. And then we were designing our new website around those principles. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Speaking of podcasters, there was a Chris Walker the other day just talked about.
Oh yeah.
Stop following your competitors and start following your customers. That was really well said. That if you're,
nice.
His comment was, I'll steal it in another form of podcast. I think it was something effective. If you're following your competitors, by definition, you're behind them. And instead, your customers will tell you what they want. They'll tell you what they need. And think about that. I think that's dead on. I think it's if you want to be the one that they come to for information and the one that they, learn about how to buy a podcast service, what questions to ask, you should be providing that content to the world and enable the customer. Your content should, leave the customer better than you found them, even if all they ever do is view the content. And sort of that obsession of creating marketing materials that are actually helpful, that are not there to benefit you, that are there to benefit the customer, is really where I think that shift occurs. And I totally agree with that philosophy.
And to build on top of what you said, that is my favorite hack, teaching people how to buy something. Because you look at the marketplace, we're the best, A, B, and C, and here's our unique value edge. And then you've got the person that says, this is how you buy it. Like, learn how to buy it. And then you go to that person to learn how to evaluate the others. Well, that person owns a company that does it, and you learn and usually those people are smart enough to where they have like the highest quality, offerings available. And so you learn about it all from them. You feel like you know them by the end of the day. Look, there have been people, Domenic, that come up to me when I'm at a conference or something and start just a fluid conversation. Like, we've known each other for 20 years talking about my kids who I've never met in my life, but they've listened to 400 episodes. It's beautiful. I love it. Yeah.
That's like the unfair symmetry of information, though, is that you're well done. And if, that's the job of marketing, of founders, of CEOs, is to really activate the market and become known and leave those people better than they were.
I want to run something by you since you're smart and you're out there. So as you go, I have a guess of where things are headed. So I'm not claiming it's right. I'm just saying I've got this small feeling that this is where we're headed in the next 5 years with content. So I think podcast, the fact that it's the wrapper of a podcast is just the container. It's the box it's in. What's inside the box is what I'm calling relationship-based content. So I think that the future is relationship-based content. I don't know what platform we're going to be using. I don't know if it's going to be a podcast or a TikTok or some new thing or a YouTube. But what I have found is that the content I gravitate towards and spend hours a month just consuming passively and my, in between periods of time, is usually clips of long form conversations with experts discussing the problems at the highest level. And I'm calling that relationship-based content. And so my thing that I believe is going to be really important for companies is to figure out how to get good at that. It's like websites, right? At first, everyone's like, it's just the new thing, or it's just social media. It's just the new thing. But then it becomes the thing you have to do. But I think that we're early on that curve.
Yeah. It's funny because in the beginning of a lot of the interactive content, there was the talking head case study that everybody used to work at SAP, right? We wanted so many of those. And then we calibrated all the way over into, let's just do animated, illustrated, explainers. And then we went to let's just get the B-roll. And then we went to let's just everyone's home anyway, so we could just do a recording from Zoom. And it became, and then we had to just let's just get AI to do it for us. Right? And now we've come to this spot where we're missing that authenticity and missing that human connection that people crave in the process, because I could read all the stuff on my own. I could watch all the demos on my own. I could learn about the process, but I want to see somebody who's just like me explain to me that this is going to work, that this is going to help me solve the problem. And I want to hear about the what was tried and failed and worked and didn't work and what we learned and, how the hero was better for the journey. That kind of storytelling, I think is really hard to replicate in other formats. And I think it's really smart of you to call that a category of content. Because I think that's the content that, sure, you might be able to have some things that you can do to make it more efficient with the tools and the AI we have, but you really do need, people buy from people. Companies don't buy anything. And how do you connect with those people on the other side of the table digitally? to give them confidence that it's going to make their problem go away, or the job more successful, or their dreams come true, or whatever those things are. It's hard to do that in totally flat content without people involved.
I like that history line you gave me. I'm going to send that to our sales team and be like, we need to put that in a deck from the talking head case study to explain it, because it ends up with the authenticity lacking, and that comes after the AI explosion. And I've said, for the past couple months that I also, on top of the relationship-based content, is one of the things I've been thinking about for 2 or 3 months. I've also been considering that I would put money on in-person events becoming far more significant than they are now. I think the driving of AI and there will be this lack of trust of this well-polished, high-quality content anybody on the planet can click and have a button and it's generated. That's going to put a premium on in-person relationships along with relationships as a whole.
Yeah, we've seen that. I mean, I've done some really interesting events over the last couple of years where, some of it was a bit of like pent up, like I want to get back out and see people, and I need to be, because now I'm hybrid and I'm not in an office all day, or I'm not with my colleagues. And so that human connection is even more important for that reason. But I definitely think, as there's just more content out there, you need different formats, and different people consume things in different ways. And some people like interactive, and some people like to read, and some people like videos, people like shorts, people like long. And how do you have different content items, content formats, ways to get educated that kind of map to different, learning styles and different journeys? And I think events are a really critical part of it. It's always been this argument of, as they're, we spend it all in digital, we spend it all in physical. And it was like the pendulum swings, right? Like before it was all physical, generally won out a lot. The answer, I think, is both. I think you need both in tandem. And ideally, you've got a whole bunch of digital activating people and getting everybody excited to know who you are and what you do and how you solve problems, and building your thought leadership presence. And then when someone finally has an opportunity to meet in person, they've already heard about you. They've already consumed content. They've already been on your website. And then after you have a conversation, and then people get busy and go back, and like the digital nurtures them. I think it's having that physical to digital hybrid concept in the journey of how buyers buy is also, I think, a really important best practice to bring in, and not over calibrate in either direction.
So I've got a specific question, which you might not be able to answer without enough context. So we can just say, move on or not. But when we were redoing the website, we made some case. We found the 3 reasons why people would want to buy, or 3 reasons why our customers who bought, right? We just looked backwards at our past 20 customers. We found these 3 in common. We made a case study for each one of the 3. And we gave a little preview quote from it, and then a download button, and then the email HubSpot situation. Would you recommend not doing that and just letting them see it, or collecting the emails, or do you not have enough information to even talk about this with me?
I believe that you should never put a speed bump and a fence with a guard in front of the content that you think is most helpful to your buyer. I think that there's a lot of research out there that says that 3% of people will fill out a form. 97% will just, I'll go somewhere else. I don't want you to know who I am. I know you're going to harass me if I tell you who I am. And so the key is that I think marketers believe, though, if that person fills out the form, they must be really interested. And so it gives me a form of intensity of their desire, so I know that they know I'm going to call them, and they fill out the form anyway, which means they must be really interested. And I think it's interesting. You go to the other side of it. What if we just gave it away to everybody? All 100% of people who wanted that can get it. Those 3% that would have filled out the form are going to get it. The 97% who wouldn't have are now going to get it. And those people who really get, moved by it in a positive way, then they're going to hit the contact us button, and they're going to say, I want to talk to you. Or you get the ability to, with some of these platforms out there, to know who's engaging with the content, whether there's a form or not. Maybe on the company level, maybe not on the personal level, but it was Coca-Cola that downloaded that, or it was someone in the HR department at Mars that downloaded that. And so a lot of these intent data tools will be able to give you some level of visibility to who's engaging with your content. HubSpot has that out of the box. There's tools like 6 Sense to do that. And so being able to see the content consumption without putting the roadblock in front of the friction in the process, I think is generally a net gain. Obviously you need a form on a contact us form because who do I call? You might need a form on a webinar because you got to send an invite with a link. But I would be very, thoughtful. You might want to stick a form on you just won some amazing third-party vendor quadrant of, you're a leader and you have the big document you want to share and you paid $100,000 to get to use it. You want to really, hang it out there so people can see it. They're going to want it so bad that they'll fill it out maybe in that case. But I think of more of an ungated experience is a way better customer experience. Build trust, educate them, and then earn the right to have them reach out to you. Add so much value that they come to you. And also get visibility to who those people are so that you can then nurture them and advertise to them and, proactively make sure they don't forget about you. I think it is a shift, and there's just some real research being done about, what makes buyers less likely to buy. Spoiler, it's no pricing, it's forms, it's cold calls. And so, how do we just give them the pricing, give them the visibility, give them the demo or the document for free, and let them kind of consume as they want to.
Not to put you on the spot, but is 2X have pricing on their website?
We do not, because we custom solution usually. And so we would, and we're talking about how to do that. Our pricing's in our first meeting though. We show up with a customer, like, this is how our rates go, but what more importantly, what do you really want to dig into? Because we're building you a team. Do you need more content? Do you need more ops? Do you need more campaigns? Do you need strategy? Do you need, those components that we put together are really unique, and it's hard to share that. It's not a secret though. It's not like you have to answer my 15 qualifying questions before I give you a proposal. Like, no, we'll share it. It's about this amount depending on this problem. And I mean, we solve like 100 different kinds of problems. And so it's really hard to, without like overwhelming the information. I think it's more of, maybe that comment is more of a software comment as well. Like the software pricing is kind of standardized, that it's very clear of what it is. And I think being able to put visibility around that is, if you can, is worth doing.
Yeah, we ran into that issue when we were trying to figure out how to price the, podcast production services. And what we ended up coming up with is just like a range. So we'd say like our average customer spends between X and X a month with us, and then people would have a good idea. And their next question is inevitably, what makes you go across that range? And it's like, the number of episodes you're recording. And so we found out that really quickly, because we charge by number of person. Is that how you guys charge, by if you have number of people joining your team?
Yeah, it's usually some volume of how much work, whether it's people, hours, deliverables. Usually it's some level of units of volume.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so we figured that in our deck for our first call, we put a range, and that will immediately, the moment they see the range, we can tell on their face. They don't even have to say a word, right? You can tell if it's within the realm of possibility for them or not. So.
Yeah, it's better for everyone just to get that, out on the table. And no reason to, but I think it's also, one thing we do as well, I think is a really good best practice, is if you're going to give somebody a proposal, send the proposal before the meeting. Don't have this deck where I got slide 1 is all the great value I have, and 2 is all the stuff I'm going to do for you. But wait, there's more, and there's more, and there's more. And you're holding the price into the last slide. I think that's annoying to buyers. They want to know out of the gate.
It is.
Where is this? Because I'm thinking about it the whole time you're talking to me, and I'd rather just know. And then if I have a problem with it, I'll bring it up in the very beginning of the call. Like, hey, just so you know that is not even on the planet we're on. Like, let's have that conversation, because maybe there's a different solution, and maybe there's a pivot we can take, or maybe, we shift the call, and then, okay, maybe it's not the right thing for you right now, but let us give you some value and advice to what it is. You think of us, and maybe we're a fit then.
Oh, we actually do that. The salespeople, we've trained everybody to love it, but at first it was a difficult sale. I'd tell them, I was like, look, we're playing this in decades, people. Like, if somebody's not right, we're not going to try to push them to stretch and to get it. We're going to point them in a direction of, how would I do this with Scotch tape and bubble gum if I just want to figure it out? Because I can say I did that because I started with nothing. I started my show with nothing. And so I know how to do it, and I know why you wouldn't want to start from nothing. And so we can help them, bridge that gap. But I always tell everybody on our sales team and marketing, I said, look, if we do right by the person that's in front of us on the call, and we just do that throughout the hundreds of sales calls we do throughout the year, eventually that's going to come back to us in a net positive.
Yeah, it's a small industry, and I agree with you on the long game. And and I can't tell you how many times. Actually, I just have it 15 minutes. True story. Call at 3 Eastern with someone I talked to 4 years ago, and he just reached out to he's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but like we had this meeting, and you came up to New York, and you told my team about all the things that we could do, and we weren't the right fit for you, but you were like so helpful, and we never forgot about you, and like now we're ready. And great, like that's the way that sales and marketing should work. If you're, you have to obviously you have to still sell things, and so if no one's buying your product, they're just taking your advice, and you don't have 4 years to catch the revenue and deliver the financial returns you need to keep your company afloat, that's a very different story. But I think that's usually the problem. The problem is like this person isn't ready for it right now. So how do we make sure that they get something that is valuable to them based on where they are? So when they are ready for it, we're their first call.
Okay. So I'm headed in the right direction, I feel like.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I say this stuff so that because people that are smart like you, they correct me if I'm wrong. And so I'm more so, I look at a lot of these interviews as me like making statements and like letting people correct me, because that tends to be the way to sharpen the blade for me.
Yeah.
So if I'm saying something stupid, you got to tell me.
I don't think you said anything crazy.
Yeah.
I think I think you're right. And I think you're thinking about, you're obsessing about how do I make this experience better for my customer? And that's what every CEO, product leader, sales leader, marketing leader, revenue leader should be working on.
I don't know exactly how to articulate this question because it's sort of come up throughout this conversation. But the points, there's 2 key points. The first one is, you've said twice, once with the downloads being blocking and the other one with the pricing and sending the proposal before the meeting. These things that I instinctively know when I go buy stuff, I bounce the site if they want my information in a form. Yet I'm having the conversation on my side. Oh, like, do I do this? And I'm talking to Domenic about it. And then the same thing is true for the pricing. Like I found myself the other day in the meeting saying, oh yeah, and we'll get to the pricing in a moment because I know you really want that. And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't I just show it to them right then? And so the question I'm trying to get at is, why is it so hard for us as professionals to do what we would want in our buying experience with our own products and companies?
That's a great question. I don't know. I'll verbally process this one. On one front, I think maybe part of it comes from a little bit of difficulty in connecting, the money you're going to ask for to the value that it's going to provide. And I think there's a bit of like, I'm going to ask someone to buy something, so I really have to make it clear to them what they're going to get for it. And it's just really hard for me to convey all. I got to remind them of their problem. I got to show them, all the things I learned so they see I'm really interested and engaged. I got to show them our solution and why it's better. I got to do all these things to justify the value for the money I'm going to ask them for. And I think it's almost the clearer the value prop gets of like, yeah, if you hired us, we'd get 40% more pipeline and 30% less cost. And by the way, that's going to cost you $1 million a year. Like if the story is easy to articulate, it's very clearly a good idea that has economic value attached to it, it's way easier to talk about the number. I think that's one piece of it. I think maybe the other piece of it is just that that there's just an element of, you're asking someone for something. You're a respectful person. You don't want to just make them feel like you're there for, to close the deal. I think you want to build a human connection, a relationship, create some just shared alignment on what you're going to do. And that maybe the third is also that the economics are a small part of the relationship, I think. It's a lot of times people are buying something not because of what it costs, care less what it costs. They care is it going to solve the problem. And I think this is an area where it's a good thing maybe to have the conversation focused in another area of like, well, let's make sure we're aligned on solving the problem, that there's This is what you wanted to do. This is what I'm going to do. Let's really obsess about getting that right. And then let's tell you what it costs. And I think in that sense, it comes from the right place. I just think if we already know what the problem is and we already know how we're going to solve it, then let's just get to the clarity of what it's going to cost and move on from there. And make sure it's the right solution.
Yeah, I think you said that brilliantly. I noticed that people that buy our customers, they almost always say the same thing in the first call. Hey, we want to do this and we just don't have the bandwidth. We want to do this, we don't have the bandwidth. And when they say those words, I'm like, great, because it's not a money thing. It's not a will this work thing. It's not a should we do this thing. It's, hey, we want to do it. We don't have the capability to do it. And so that I was making notes as you were talking, like capability, cost, relationships, all of those things. And I'm slowing down in my talking right now because I'm thinking about how they connect back to us. So I'm unofficially leveraging your knowledge as free consulting for my company.
Hey, I'm here to leave you better than I found you.
You're the best. Well, I know we have a hard stop, and I want to make sure we have a call to action to get people to go check out 2X Marketing. Can you tell me what the website is and what's the first step that they should take?
Yeah, it's 2x.marketing is the URL. And there's some videos on there about what problems we solve and how we help someone run a better marketing organization. I think the most interesting part is in insights. I think that our typical customer is a marketing leader, someone who's trying to transform. And as a service company, half of the interesting part is, well, we can actually do the work for you. The other half is like, what do we think? What do we think transformation means? What do we think value means? What do we think account-based marketing means? What do we think the job of the CMO is? And there's some really cool content on the insights section where we share a bit about, as I was a former CMO, now I'm kind of trapped in a CEO's body. And so you never stop being a CMO, I find now. And so we're marketers at heart. We're folks that are trying to help the marketing leader be more successful, how to drive more impact and value for their business. People spend money on marketing because they want more revenue. We want to talk about how to do that and have some points of view. And so I think if you're a B2B marketing leader trying to do something innovative and different with your marketing, or you're struggling with a do more with less mandate, or you have something that is incomplete, deficient, first place I would start is to learn about a better way. And I think we've got a lot of insights around the site to do that. A lot of people come to us right now that are totally in alignment to what the business needs them to do, that they have to run more efficiently. They have to produce more impact. They might have to restructure their organization and think really intentionally about cost of people and cost of vendors. And a lot of CMOs and market leaders I meet are like, they're okay with that. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know where to cut and where to optimize or where to improve or where to change in a way that's actually going to produce a better result and operate a more agile, flexible, efficient engine. And I think we're the best in the world to help people figure that out.
I love it. Domenic, this is fantastic. 2x.marketing. Man, we made a podcast. How do you feel?
It was fun. It was good talking to you. It was an easy conversation.